Welcome, it's Denome, and welcome to this market update. Today is going to be a little bit longer video because we're going to take a look at some of the big news, basically news that will shape the next bull market completely. Because we're talking about the real world assets, because that's going to be the huge price driver. Because if we can bring index funds onto blockchain, you can imagine how much money that will mean. Because if you can trade an index fund 24/7 anywhere in the world, by anyone, that's gonna bring a lot more liquidity to crypto. And if you can yield farm, you can do all of this crazy stuff with real world assets, that's gonna be bringing just a lot more liquidity, obviously, to crypto. So that's gonna be the huge price driver, and there's some developments on that front that we will talk about in this video. We're also gonna take a look at under the hood of Bitcoin a little bit differently than we have in the past. So I have actually pulled out an old tool that I used to use in the past, and there's some very keen, interesting insights that is probably going to be bullish as well. But in the short term, just looking at the price here before we talk about the news and the fundamentals, I'm still not 100% convinced that we are out of the blue yet. And one of the reasons is that we see significant resistance in this area here. So we have 2 wicks here. And when we go back to the 4-hour view here, you can see that this was actually a double top signal here. This bar was slightly higher here, but at the same time, RSI was slightly lower, giving us a bearish divergence. So we might still have some momentum left to the downside. Another bearish thing in the short term is this line here on the RSI. So this line got broken to the downside as well. We should have just shot up and broken this yellow line here for me to actually flip bullish, but we are not seeing that. So this broke to the downside, so we might actually just expect, let's say, some bearish things, maybe some bullish things during the weekend, but bearish in the maybe the start of next week. That's my kind of expectation. But all in all, the sell pressure is exhausting. So we have the Germany situation where Germany was holding 50,000 Bitcoin from confiscating the Bitcoin of one piracy website, and they already sold 41,000 Bitcoin of that stash. So they only hold 9,000 Bitcoin anymore. So the sell pressure is exhausting on this front, which is extremely, extremely good. Next up, when we talk about fundamentals, we can take a look at the whale wallets. Some Bitcoin miners have, by the way, started to sell here once again because they are not turning a profit. But this is the interesting chart here. So this chart here shows us whales, and it shows us retail investors. So you can see some retail investor accumulation during this time. We are also seeing whale accumulation as well. So this is very, very, very significant here, because this shows us that there's a lot more, there's demand here at these lower prices, basically giving us some sort of a like a bottom signal here, in my opinion. At least a short-term bullish momentum. Because when we take a look at the pink line here, which is the most significant whales, 1,000 to 10,000 Bitcoin they are holding in their wallets, and there's how many people right now? 1,960 wallets. When we just take a look at how this chart has behaved, you can see that these whales started to accumulate just massively in January 2024, and they actually started to sell here, or they peaked here at February 2024. The price kept going upwards for a while, and then we saw some more accumulation here and just a complete sell-off here, and then the price basically followed that sell-off that we've seen so far. But when they are accumulating, I do want to pay attention to it, because this accumulation is now more than we have seen during this time here. So this is quite significant and bullish thing to see. And also it means if they are accumulating, they are also not selling. So there's both things, that the sell pressure, this means that there's less sell pressure because they are no longer holding insane amounts of Bitcoin. Also, it means that there's probably going to be buy pressure because they are seeing that this might be the bottom. So that's, supply demand dynamics, and usually means that the price will have to increase. So this is obviously very, very cool to see. Something more interesting here, not really on sentiment, Now, actually, let's hop over to take a look at Crypto Quant, because this is the tool that I used to use in the past in basically all of my videos, market updates, and I haven't used it for a while after I started using the Santiment, but there's a couple of things here that I want to talk about. First off, let's take a look at the exchange reserves of Bitcoin on spot exchanges. So, as you can see here, on July 4th until now, we saw a drop of roughly 50,000 Bitcoin leaving exchanges. And Germany, they were actually depositing the Bitcoin onto Kraken, which is spot exchange. So even though Germany was dumping, some people were just absolutely buying this sell pressure here. And that's obviously very, very cool that they want to hold Bitcoin long term, take the Bitcoin out of exchanges. And when we compare this kind of, let's say exodus out of exchanges, we haven't seen anything like this until 2023 the end of 2022 actually. So that was the absolute bottom here. And then we saw this massive rally. So this is, in my opinion, also like long term extremely bullish, looks to be. So that's very, very cool. Another cool thing here that I have to scroll all the way down here, and this is an indicator I haven't actually used in the past. Actually, before we talk about that, I just want to talk about Ethereum just for a while. What you can see here on Ethereum exchange reserves, you see that they had 32 billion Ethereum in exchange reserves in 2022 when price was what was it, 4,700. We haven't seen that price yet, but now exchanges have half the amount anymore. And that just means that there's been a lot of demand for Ethereum, and we haven't even reached the previous all-time high yet on Ethereum. So we have to pay attention to this, because this is a lot of demand for Ethereum, just money leaving exchanges. This is very, very cool. Next up, and this is the important chart that I wanted to highlight. This is the balance of accumulation addresses, or you could call them permanent Bitcoin addresses. So this is money. And so what is an accumulation address? It is an address that has at least 10 Bitcoin inside them. So these are whale addresses. And they are zero outgoing or outflow transactions. Zero. So it's basically Bitcoin that enters but never exits. And this has just increased from 2020 until today. Let's just compare the last year. So this is last year, almost exactly 2 days. But anyway, the number was 436,000 Bitcoin. Now the number is already double within just 1 year, 846,000 Bitcoin. And in the recent days, this has just skyrocketed as well. So this means there's some crazy mega bulls out there. Maybe it's Sailor, I don't know who it is. But anyway, there's just some mega bulls who just buy Bitcoin and they don't want to sell it. And they have been very, very active during this time as well. So this is obviously very, very bullish for Bitcoin. But eventually these people probably will sell their Bitcoin. So it's also like locked energy that eventually will be released. But if they are buying Bitcoin when it drops, that probably means that they are not going to be selling Bitcoin anytime soon either. So these guys are expecting higher prices at least than what we saw here. They did not sell even when the price of Bitcoin was 60 or 70k Bitcoin. They didn't sell even there. So they are expecting much higher prices than that. So that's very, very cool that I wanted to show you that fundamentally Bitcoin looks quite strong. It's simply the short term that looks bad. Now let's actually talk about some of the news and before we talk about the real world assets. So spot Ethereum ETFs, the Crypto.com research team says that they potentially will be launching in July. So within the next 2 weeks, could be next week even, we see the launch of Ethereum ETFs. And these guys are projecting that they will see an inflow of $1.4 billion to $4.5 billion within the next 6 months. So How much is 1.4 billion or 4.5 billion? Well, Bitcoin ETFs saw an inflow of $14 billion. So it's maybe like 10% or 10 to 20%, 10 to 30% of what Bitcoin saw in inflows. But with the Bitcoin inflows, you have to also consider that there were private funds that people parked their funds into, that they took the money out of the private funds and put it into the ETFs because they have lower fees and they are maybe more trustworthy as well. So similar thing obviously could happen with Ethereum, that not all of this money is actually new money that comes from the blue. But obviously it is bullish, but the event itself when this launch might not actually be immediately bullish, because there's a lot of people who have actually been accumulating Ethereum, like I showed you in this chart here. What was it? Here, people have been just accumulating Ethereum here, and when the ETFs launch, they might actually see this as an event where they want to sell that Ethereum. So even though it is fundamentally bullish and long term, it is obviously going to be bullish because it's another way for people to park their fund money into a reputable asset like Ethereum. So it will just be long-term bullish. But in the short term, it might not be that bullish. Anyway, I think this is very, very cool if and when they launch, because at least it will make headlines. Another thing that will make headlines is Donald Trump, because he has flipped bullish on Bitcoin as well. So I think I saw the screenshot from the Truth Social, and he said that he wants Bitcoin to be mined within United States. So if he will become the president, expect a lot more pro-crypto legislation. So Donald Trump will also be coming to speak at a Bitcoin conference in 2 weeks. So this will be making headlines. Obviously, that will make people interested in Bitcoin again. And because he's expected to win, I think people will be viewing Bitcoin and crypto maybe a little bit a different light. Like, hey, wait a minute, if Trump is going to be the president and he's going to be pro-crypto, maybe I should be pro-crypto as well. So obviously this is going to be very, very cool. Next up, we have an update from MakerDAO. And this is quite significant, but this is under notice. Almost nobody liked this tweet, which I thought was interesting. Actually, I didn't like it either. So anyway, what is going to happen here is MakerDAO, it's a significant OG DeFi platform. So currently they have $5.2 billion worth of assets, and the price increase was a little bit crazy here. So it went from $600 million market cap to $3.6 billion market cap, and now it has had a breather. I still think this is a little bit overvalued compared to the total value locked here, because like here the difference between total value locked and the market cap was like over 1 to 10. Now it's like 1 to 2 anymore. So it doesn't look that good as an investment, in my opinion. But what is interesting is what they are doing. So they currently just opened a competition with Spark, and Spark is like a sub wing of Maker, so it's still MakerDAO, but they are trying to onboard $1 billion worth of assets, worth of tokenized real world assets onto MakerDAO, onto the Ethereum blockchain, onto other blockchains as well. So anyone can actually just participate here in this competition and basically bring their real world assets here, and you can apply it starting from August 12th. So I don't know if this is gonna work or not, if it's gonna be anything interesting or not, but at least they are trying to bring real world assets onto blockchain. And obviously it's going to be very bullish when these real world assets come to blockchain, because then you can suddenly do yield farming. Let's say an ETF is coming here or a stock is coming on chain. Anyone around the world can invest into these, so you don't have to be registered in an exchange or anything like that. So if that future will happen, it's going to bring so much liquidity to crypto, and that's just going to make crypto assets rise in price. So this is very, very cool to see. Another protocol that is heavily focusing on real world assets is Chainlink. And Chainlink might actually be undervalued for its price right now. The price is $12 and it peaked at $20 already in this cycle. And it hasn't reached the all-time high from the previous cycle either. So in my opinion, the Chainlink looks a little bit undervalued already. But anyway, they have partnered up with Fidelity, which is an international monetary fund, which controls $6.9 billion worth of assets. And the partnership is that they are providing transparency and accessibility around its net asset value data. So they are providing the data, publicly available data now, and I don't know what's gonna be the use case for this, but this is like one step closer to see that this fund is gonna be tradable on blockchain. That's gonna be the ultimate use case. As of now, they're basically just providing the data, verifying the assets that they hold. I don't know if this will allow somebody to create like a synthetic version of this fund. I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know. Or maybe at least some people can bet on the price or the net asset value going up or down. I don't know. But it's interesting. So people now have access to this data anyway. So it's cool to see this. And Chainlink is an oracle, and it is most widely used oracle in blockchain. So I think this is at least interesting. It's already like a 1 week old news, but I think this is very cool as well. Obviously, what could be bearish in the short term is if there's a market crash. And there obviously could be a market crash, like we've talked about in this channel as well, that the real world data looks a little bit bad. But to contrast that, I am also saying that companies are making record profits right now. And the reason for record profits is that energy prices are down. And that means that the profit margins are going up. And these companies are also laying out staff, firing people. And because they are firing people, that also means that the bottom lines look better. Even though the consumers, their situation doesn't look that good, the companies, their profit margins are increasing. So that might still give us some bullish wind for the rest of the year. And I don't think Biden or the Democrats want to crash the markets before the election, because that's going to just mean that Trump is going to be in power for sure. So for that reason, let's take a look at the global liquidity at the end of this video as well, because this is very, very interesting what happened basically yesterday. So here is the candle from yesterday. So this is global liquidity, all of the M2 money supplies of all the major currencies, and these actually increased by almost 0.5%. So that's a significant number, and it's basically, at least for now, takes us out of this bear zone area here that we have been tracking. And we have seen a lot of money printing that are much higher money printing than this one. Like here you can see this jump, which was like 1% within 1 day. The global money supply just increased here, but still 0.5%. It's a significant number, and it's a trend shift in the short term as well. So let's see if that actually will continue, or the governments will allow a market crash or not. But this is an interesting thing, because when we actually compare the global liquidity here with the price of Bitcoin, this is going to be interesting. So here we have the price of Bitcoin, and below we have the global liquidity. So here from 2020, we saw the global liquidity increase, and as a lagging effect, finally Bitcoin started to catch up to the global liquidity. And when the global liquidity started to dry off, that's when Bitcoin basically topped off here as well. And then the global liquidity was going down and down and down and down, and that's when people basically took their money out of the risky assets, and Bitcoin was one of the biggest biggest assets that suffered from this liquidity crisis here. Some banks went under and so on and so forth. But then we saw liquidity injections come back online, and we saw a lot of money printing here. And again, as a lagging effect, Bitcoin finally started trend to the upside here. And here's the a little bit scary part here. Now Bitcoin is at the same price levels we were here at 2021, 2022. But we aren't seeing any more global liquidity than we had here. And at the same time, we have these high interest rates that people have to pay. So the money that people have at the same time is down. So we do need for me to actually think that a lot more liquidity will come in the short term. We do need to see government interventions, and this is the final nail in the coffin, which makes me not 100% bullish yet either. Is that the global liquidity is at the same levels, Bitcoin is at the same levels. So depending where this goes, and that's obviously going to show us where Bitcoin will be headed as well. Obviously, the best situation is when we see global liquidity just increasing and increasing, but Bitcoin is still lagging behind. That's going to be the absolute best buying signal that you can obviously see or spot anywhere. So let's see how this goes. I think people start to pay more attention to this, so it might not lag as much behind as it has before. And now we have the ETFs, so companies may actually, governments or individuals might actually be accumulating Bitcoin immediately when they see these spikes as well. So all in all, I think the tide is turning for Bitcoin, and I do think that the price move to the downside, when we do see more downside here, that's going to be short-lived. And this will break to the upside, this RSI trend line here. Eventually, it could be like this month, could be in August. By September, this should already break to the upside. Maybe if we are just going all the way down here, it could be October. But if we are basically hovering below the 30 line on RSI, that means that the price is also trending to the downside. So I just don't see that much market turmoil until we see some sort of intervention from the markets, because it's not going to be only Bitcoin that's going to suffer. It's going to be the S&P 500 and the stock market and the pension funds and all of these things. So we might see a market crash. Obviously, that's not out of the question, but just looking at this might be the bottom here. So what I have personally done is I have closed off my shorts. So I'm now pretty neutral on the market, maybe even slightly bullish, but I haven't deployed all of my capital. So I'm kind of just waiting for that last hit, and then I will be deploying my capital. 52K, 53K, or even just in the short term, like this line here could be even the short-term bottom, because we are just seeing so much buying and the sell pressure from the Germany has halted. The next sell pressure is still the 140,000 Bitcoin that the Mt. Gox has, but since we saw basically not a lot of reaction from Germany selling, I don't think the Mt. Gox situation will be as bad, because not everybody will be selling their Bitcoin, unlike Germany where we saw 100% of the Bitcoin being sold. But when Mt. Gox releases the Bitcoin, some people may still decide to hold Bitcoin rather than sell it. But when that is starting to release the market, we will see how the market reacts. So that's one factor that we have to take into account. But the good thing is we do see a lot of demand here from whales. By the way, I forgot to show you this one as well. So this is the funds. So unfortunately, in the short term, this is kind of giving me a signal that we might see some move to the downside, because we are seeing this going down the total buying of the ETFs. So that's there as well. Anyway, that's everything I had for the video today. And yeah, if you like this video, consider giving me a like and a subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks and bye-bye.